So, compassion in daily life. I think before going into the actual subject, I think we should contemplate a little bit on education system, which is a very crucial kind of um, role to play in our life, and what has been the education system in India and in Buddhist uh, system, and then um, what education system we already have in the modern society, and what it is going to take shape in future. So the education system in modern society, as we all see, is primarily related to the knowledge about the world, the outside world. And as we were talking about this morning, the science has explored a lot, and besides science, now there are many other subjects also, which again are based on the external world, social system, and then you know, and many other subjects. But most of them, or all of them, are in a way about information regarding the world around us, but not information about our own self, and as a person, or as the the internal kind of the entities of the person. So therefore, according to Buddhism, as you must be knowing about the three shikshas, the three trainings, or Tripitaka, you must have heard about the three baskets of Buddha's teachings. And the content of these three baskets are the three shikshas. Shiksha actually these days in Sanskrit or Hindi is used for education. The education ministry, Shiksha Mantralaya, and the education system, the Shiksha Vyavastha and things like that. So, but it retains the word shiksha, but the content has very much changed, because now, according to the modern education system, the shiksha refers according to the Hindi or the Sanskrit word in the modern context. Still, it refers to the external, the modern education system, right? Which provides education only about the external world. However, in Buddhism, the education is shiksha, means the moral education, the contents of the three baskets, which contain the entire teachings of the Buddha, right? You are aware of these three baskets, or the three contents of the Buddha's teachings? So the Vinaya Shiksha, the Vinaya Pitaka, Sutra Pitaka, and Abhidhamma Pitaka. Vinaya, the content of the Vinaya is the moral disciplines, and the content of the concentrative meditation is attention, concentration, and the content of the Abhidhamma Pitaka is the wisdom. So the entire teaching of the Buddha and the content of these Buddhas, the Buddha's the teachings, they are included in these three baskets, and the contents, as I said, are the the moral discipline, the whoever, the monks or lays, they are trained in the moral discipline, and then on the basis of the moral discipline, they are giving teachings for the meditational kind of process of bringing and developing concentration, right? And then through concentration. What is the purpose of concentration? Because our mind is so, wandering, that it is very difficult for our mind to be, controlled and concentrated. We all experience that, right? So, in order to bring our mind and train our mind to be attentive, to be concentrated, then there is a meditative concentration as the content of the second pitak, the basket. And what would you do with the concentration? Then, with the concentration, there is the wisdom to be developed, right? Wisdom to be developed to see the reality of the world, reality of self, reality of mind, and through which one can be, liberated. So this is the whole kind of process, and this is, according to Buddhism, is the education system in Buddhism, right? So, which starts from moral discipline, and then to mental concentrative meditation, and then the wisdom to be developed. So, the very purpose of this educational system, the Shiksha system, is to train the person in a very gradual process and finally to be liberated from suffering. Because the very goal of the education is, to be liberated from suffering, right? So therefore, whether a person is fully educated or not is not determined by how much he has studied, right? Academically, how much he has achieved, but it is decided. The decisive factors are how much the person has gone through this training, right? And at certain point of time, when the masters in the ancient monastic systems, when the masters decide that this person is now qualified, he has learned, he is trained, and now he is qualified to be a teacher, then they are allowed to go out to give teachings. Otherwise, not like our modern university system, that after giving some information test, and then they qualified bachelor and then master and then PhD, and how much research papers they have written, and based on that the person becomes a professor, and then the senior professor, and like that. So the very qualification of teacher is also not simply those who have gone through that, but person who has relatively a concentrated mind, and the person who has relatively better off in their moral discipline, the person who is better off in understanding and in terms of development of wisdom. So these are the qualifying, the qualifications. And then above that, the person should be kind-hearted, and should be, very devoted to teaching, and should not be tired of teaching a very kind of, the hard learning student, to teach them again and again. They should not be tired of that kind of quality, and then must have a kind heart, and pedagogically one must have a good, the sound pedagogical method of communicating the message to the student. So there are many qualifications of the teachers, and also qualification of students. Students' qualification is like, the person must have a very discerning mind, right? And then got interested in to the subject. So it is, as we have in the modern the university system also. Of course, the student must have interest, and then must be intelligent enough to have a discernment of the subjects, right? So these are the basic qualifications for teachers. Based on that, so we can see that the very purpose of education is to, to develop the personality, not just to have information, and not just to have, the develop the skills, right? Modern education is basically a kind of a development focused on development of skills and gathering of information. So of course that is good. I'm not saying that this is something not good and should not be done, but the modern education is half done. That is what we have gathered information about the world, information about the external world, information about lots of things, right, which are very useful in many ways. And in the medical science and the developments that have taken place in communication, transportation, and medical discipline is amazing, right? Now one can change one's heart, transplantation, and kidney transplantations, organ. Of course, there are some references in ancient time, transplantation of organs, but it is not that commonly done, right? So the modern the technology and the scientific discoveries have a very sophisticated kind of the ideas and facts, and then the technologies developed which has been which has contributed a lot to the society in terms of bringing longevity to the life of people, and then for the to make a society relatively better, happier, right? But again, with all this, can we be happy, right? So this is a big question that we have always been, raising. That are we sufficient enough with these facilities? The half world is yet to be explored, according in the modern scientific research and world. The half world is yet to be explored. And in a way, even we can say that more than half a world is we, live in the world with all the facilities, with the house, with the telephone, mobile. No one can live without, mobile. And then you have TVs, you have internet, you have, transportations, all facilities. But these are, the objects of senses, right? And our internal mental world is yet to be explored, and the reaction and the feelings that we have, the suffering and the happiness that we have are not necessarily the pleasures and the pain that we get out of contact of objects with the senses, right? They may not necessarily be, right? When we take generally known to be a very delicious, dish, may not necessarily be delicious and may not give rise to happiness, right? Bring happiness if our mental state is not happy while we take that, right? Which means there's another kind of agency, or there is another kind of state which contributes much more than our senses to our happiness or suffering, right? So that we all understand, right? So when we open our eyes, so immediately when you have a bad dream, nightmare, then you have, even though you are in your best room with all the best facilities, you have a very unhappy kind of, environment and unhappy mindset. Why is that? Because even though these external and sensual objects are good enough, but your mind is not happy. The mind, which is which reflects on the observation of the world and inner world, that is the instrumental whether you are happy or not, whether you are happy or unhappy, right? So that is the most profound, most complex thing that is to be explored, but has not been explored in modern science, right? And when we see an object, when you see a person, when you go to a place, so whether or not you become happy or not depends on your mental state rather than the place itself, rather than the facilities that you have, right? So now, how you can be happy? People rarely have explored into that in the modern kind of civilization. People have not explored into that world. And if to be happy, then they organize parties and then go to some uh, dance parties, or then go to some sea beach, or go for a picnic, or go for a tour or something like that. But this may not necessarily bring happiness, right? It is simply a distraction. We are trying to distract from our problem, but these are not the actual kind of real solution for. So then, what are the the solutions and the knowledge that can provide us some some um, solutions? So that is about what the ancient most of the religious systems, and particularly in India and in Buddhist tradition, the mind had been explored to such an extent in a great detail that what are the the great details of the mind and the detail of the account. It is very fascinating to see that in modern science, to me, when I contemplate on these things, sometimes it is very striking to know that in modern material scientific observations, research, how many elements are there? Most of you are from the science side, engineers, and more than around little bit over 120, right, elements, material elements. Now and then this is explored, and with great care and precisions, and and it has, as I said, it has lots of implications on our life and society, right? And on the other side, in India and in the Buddhist tradition, they have explored the mind, right? They have explored mind, and then they found that canonically we have 53 mental elements, Simjung, right? And then, besides the canonical account of 53 mental elements, we also find different other accounts, in different treatises. All amounts to be a little bit, over 100. So this is amazing to see that in the West, in modern science, they have explored and found the mental, material elements amounting to around 100, or sometimes it is counted as 122 or something like that, but I'm not sure of the exact number. And in Tibetan and in Buddhist canonical, account tradition, as I said, it is 53 in canonical account, but nearly about 120, the mental elements. So how close they are in terms of the elements when they go into deeper level of these phenomena, and then look into the different elements, then they find. So, but normally people do not have this kind of idea that we, what is mind? This morning someone was asking, where is mind? And yes, this is a big question for everybody. This, what mind, how mind functions. We get angry, we get, compassion, become compassionate, and we, generate loving kindness. We do all this, we feel all this. But how in great detail these work, people have very little idea about this, right? And modern science does not have idea about this. That and then even they have many of the the scientists have been talking about the what do you call that? The evolutionary theory that beings, and particularly human beings, are by nature selfish, aggressive, beings, whereas according to Buddhism, beings are by nature kind, loving, and compassionate. So very opposite findings. According to evolutionary theory, for survival, they have to be very competitive, they have to be very selfish and things like that. But deep down there, and now with the latest kind of interaction between Buddhism and science, many new findings have come into existence, revealed and discovered based on the Buddhist account of mind. And then the scientists have done lots of researches on this. And it is, they have done research with the child of, 5-6 months. And then they were shown a graphic of, perhaps you might have seen. Have you seen? None of you have seen? The child was not even able to, talk. This, I think it is around, it's less than 1 year. They were shown a graphic or, a video where there is a vehicle or the Mickey kind of thing which tries to climb uphill, and then there is one monster kind of thing which pushes it down. It tries to go up, it pushes down, it tries, and the child shows unhappiness on that. And then there is another video which shows that it tries to go up, and there is one which helps it and pulls up, and then it could get to the top, and child smiles. So this is the nature of human. No one has taught that, what is good and bad and things like that. But instinctively there is a kind of reaction towards observation of that, even at that level, for which there is no, space to be trained, right? And it is done at different levels, and the scientific researchers have been found that generosity, and then the compassion, showing loving kindness, are very much deep down into the very nature of human beings, right? And also you can see with the animals, showing similar kind of attitude, right? So these things are the complex nature of our mind, which has so many, as I was saying, that over 100 mental elements, and then how they function, how they how they come into existence, the destructive ones, the positive ones, how they come into existence, when they come into existence, what are their implications, how they make impact on our main mental stream, and then how they make impact on our behavior, right? And then how, as a result of that kind of mental state, our behaviors are changed accordingly. And when the behaviors are changed, then our relation changes. When we have a destructive mind and the behavior changes according to that, our relation changes, and then we have bad relation and bad social relation. When you have a good the mental elements and good positive emotions, and trained in positive emotions and more positive emotions like compassion, loving kindness, generosity, patience, and things like that. So they leave a strong impact on our body, behavior, and on our physiological system, right? And then on our behavior, and consequently we have a better relation, and then you are much happier person, right? So we have not gone into that until very recently. The modern science has not gone into that, uh, that level. But recently, when the science have started having interaction with His Holiness the Dalai Lama for over 30 years, then they have started serious research about emotions, of positive emotions and negative emotions, and these have, been these have drawn lots of attention from scientists at the global level, and so many research centers are now, devoted, dedicated to do research on these kind of researches. Professor Richard Davidson, he was mentioning at one of the conference that way back about 12, 15 years back, the research in neuroscience, neuropsychology, the research applicants for the graduate, programs used to be very limited candidates, applicants. But now there are hundreds of applicants, so, right, in every for every department in the different universities. So it has become a very kind of attractive area of research, and which is developing very fast, right? So now these studies, and again shifting back to our Buddhist kind of attitude, these destructive emotions and positive emotions, we have beings, and we have human beings have a instinct of being selfish, and also we have negative destructive emotions, which are quite natural, and also we have very positive emotions as well. Now it depends upon in what kind of environment the person has lived or lives, that gives rise to the promotion of either destructive emotions or positive emotions. So not only with the environment, but also with the but also with the training that you get, right? And that if you pay attention to the the details of these emotions, and pay attention to how to details of the emotions, and understand the destructive nature of the negative emotions, and the positive constructive nature of the positive emotions, and how they make impact. There are great details, accounts in traditional treatises, and there is a teaching lineage, and there is a practice of mind training, which is how we should train our mind in tackling with the negative emotions, and in promoting the positive emotions. So this is done in order to be a happier person and a better person, right? We can be a better person if we are constructive in nature, positive in nature, if we are not making trouble in our society, and if we are making some contribution to the peace of the society, that's a good person, right? And so how we can do that? We can deliberately train ourselves, change our the change our nature of thinking, and change our way of looking at things, and change our the emotions, right, through training, through mental training, right, mind training. And these are not only doable, and these are not just new findings, but these are 1,000-year-old tradition, which has been in practice not only through the knowledge system, but as a practicing living practical tradition. So And these now are being, the scientists are bringing, the practitioners from Himalayan caves, meditating in the Himalayan caves for 50, 60,000 hours, and they bring them down to in the laboratories, and then they bring the philosophers and work on them, on their brain and their nervous system. They find that their nervous system and their, the brain system are very different. Those who have, um, the meditation practice and the practice of compassion, that their nervous system and the neurological systems have a major change in that, right? And this has a very strong impact on our physiological system, as I said. And these are now proven through scientific researches and evidences, right? These are proven. And then in the similar manner, the person who has a strong anger and hatred, and then disliking or self-hatred or hatred in general, have a negative impact on body, and then depression, and then blood pressure, and different kinds of the health issues and mental issues arise, simply not because of intake of food elements and chemicals, but because of the person's thought process and how the person thinks, and how person's mental state is, in what kind of environment the person lives, right? So there are several research papers in top ranking research journals in the world, and these are becoming very evident and more evident these days. So these so since our topic is compassion in daily life, so among all these constructive emotions, the compassion is the supreme emotion, by developing which you can tackle with the negative emotions, and you can one can attain happiness, mental peace, and make others also peaceful, right? So it is a kind of the most powerful positive mental uh, component, or mental the element, which has a great impact not only on our daily life, but also in our spiritual pursuit. Those who pursue higher spiritual kind of realizations according to Buddhist tradition. So in Buddhism in general, and particularly in Mahayana Buddhism, compassion is regarded to be the most important emotion or mental state, which is key to the development of a entire progressive realizational spiritual practice, right? So, but this morning also someone raised a question about the efficacy of the compassion and things like that. So when somebody practices compassion, or when we talk about compassion, does it mean that you just you should not take care of yourself, but you should devote for others completely? Then many people could think that this is not going to be possible for me. I have to take care of myself, I have to take care of my family and things like that. But in actually life, if you are compassionate, then your life is going to be much better off and more peaceful, more happier, by having compassion, the cultivating compassion, right? So compassion generates power, compassion generates strength, compassion, changes your perspective, right? So therefore, the compassion from that perspective is His Holiness the Dalai Lama used to say that if you want to be a very, wise selfish person, then you should practice compassion, because that makes you happier and you can make others happier, right? And the selfishness that we normally have, the intention or the instinct behind the selfishness is that I want the things, I have to gain the things, right? But it is the opposite. This is a very wrong kind of perverted kind of view, that if I do for myself, then I would be happier. If I don't do for others, then I will be doing everything for myself, then I would be happier. This is the logic and argument, right? But in reality, this is opposite. If one keeps doing, for oneself and everything focused on one's own life as being very selfish, then the person becomes unhappier, right? Much unhappier, because the person's very perspective is focused on himself or herself, right? And the entire perspective of the world view is narrowed down to the self. He cannot see the wider picture of the world. He cannot see the wider picture of society. He cannot see the wider picture of well-being, right? How he or she is associated or dependent on others, he cannot see that. She cannot see that. It's blinded, clouded with this selfish attitude, right? If someone wants really to be, happy, then one should open one's heart and be concerned for others, because by nature we are, as His Holiness's, very favorite term is a social animal. And many other social scientists have also said, we are a social animal. We are dependent on others. Whatever we have is gifted by others, but we contribute very little, except with some people, like His Holiness Mahatma Gandhi and what is his name? The South African Nelson Mandela and Mother Teresa, and they are such great people in our society. We had in the past and also in present we have such people. Why they have widened? And because they saw the benefit of and then they started benefiting others. We can also, in a similar way, in within our capacity, we can open our heart, because we are totally dependent on others. Just to see, everything that we have is given by others. Our body, by mother, parents, and then whatever we know through education, by teachers, and by parents, and by friends and society. The language that we have is evolved in course of thousands of years. The sophisticated language. People, when they don't contemplate, they think that this is out there naturally, and why I should thank people, why I should be thankful to others. It is there, I'm earning by myself, so I'm standing on my own. So why should I be grateful for others? In fact, we need to be grateful in every respect. So when we talk about the language has got to this extent, very sophisticated, right? And there are some languages in a very remote places. They can communicate barely, no subtle communication is possible. But most of the the developed languages can communicate very sophisticated content, ideas, and philosophical issues, and very high level communication is possible because of contribution of millions and millions and billions of people for thousands of years. Every time it evolved, someone made some contribution, new words came, language expression changed, right? And then it evolved, and now it is in front of us on table, ready-made, and we take it for granted, which is in fact not fair. Yeah. Then see the food that we receive. Some of the food have come from India, from America, from distant places, Then one may feel that why they are working for their own job and it has come. So I'm paying for that. If you are capable, you're paying, your money is capable to create everything, just be in the desert with your whole bank balance, right? Remain in the desert for 6 months. Then you can see what you can do in the desert. Can you buy? Can you bring those things on your own? So these are the things that we need to contemplate. And now see the clothes that we have. So many people have, contributed. So many. And if it is a woolen or fur or something like that, that comes from animal, and then from animal it goes to some, there's a transportation, then somebody in the factory works, and many people works there day and night, and then finally it comes through a long process to us, right? And we are not grateful. We feel that I have paid for this, why should I be grateful? Some people might feel that, right? But this is, something that we should be very grateful. So similarly, all kinds of scientific findings, discoveries, and so we must use these, utilize this to become a better person, to become a more peaceful person, to become, to contribute to make the society a more peaceful place to live, and then it would be a genuine contribution to society, right? Otherwise, we have been able to take, but we have not contributed in return anything. If we become a kind person and remain a kind person and then make some contribution to society, that is your contribution, the great contribution, right? And it is a great achievement for ourselves. If we are happy, then material kind of achievement is not necessarily going to give us happiness. If our mental state is happy, then in whatever kind of situation you are going to be happy, right? If the wealth alone can bring happiness, then the richest people in the world must be the happiest people. But they are not, certainly not, right? That itself shows that the wealth is not what they can do. Many of them are doing very generous, works and things like that, which are very, great. But to say that the wealth cannot be the source of happiness, but we have to, if we want happiness, then the happiness has to be created from within by developing compassion, by having concern for others, right? And then some people might have a question that if we are having concern for others, this morning someone raised this question that if we have a concern for others' suffering and we share others' suffering, isn't that going to be additional suffering for us? This is a very genuine question. It has been raised in, hundreds of years back in the philosophical issues, in debates, that are you not going to bring additional suffering for yourself? But this is not, because it brings you strength, it brings you confidence, and one of the, now these days, lots of researches are being done in the United States. The burnt out doctors, burnt out, the police people. Why do they, get burned out, because many of them get too overburdened by and too stressed by work, right? But if when they are trained with compassion, and when they do meditation on compassion and how to be concerned for others, and then do their job as a service with a good motivation to benefit others, and then the feeling that they are making a great contribution to society, and then making others happy. For example, doctors and even police, maintaining law and order to the society, their presence is very important, right? If when they change the perspective, they are doing the same work. When they change their perspective, they are out of problem, out of stress. They are doing the same work, right? So this shows that compassion has such a power to make our effort more fruitful, more result oriented in terms of benefiting others, and that changes the whole perspective of the person's life, right? If we have we are selfish, on the other hand, then the selfish, as I said, that closes down many of the avenues, and then it narrows down to such an extent that we are able to look only our own interest. When we look to a very narrow area, then even a small problem becomes too big and unbearable, right? You just have try to experience this, and when you have your personal kind of whole thing is narrowed down, and then start looking at a very microscopic level, then even a small thing appears very big, and then that becomes a problematic. But if you look the whole picture, the bigger picture, then you have a problem, others have more problem, then you can see that, oh, my problem is nothing, but they have more problems, and then my problem is lesser, so I can help others to get free from that kind of problem. So your problem becomes less, and you can contribute to others. So this is the way that there are so many ways to change your life through compassionate kind of attitude, right? So compassion is the antidote or the medicine for hundreds of diseases, or any kind of negative mind, anger, hatred, jealousy, right, greed. They all arise when we are all these negative mentalities arise when we are when we have a very narrow kind of attitude, and when our perspectives are not perspectives are not wide enough, and our understanding of the world is not good enough, then we have all these things. When we have a better perspective of the world, better understanding of your mental state, and how these negative mental states function in our mind, and then creates problem in ourselves, and then consequently resulting many problems. When we have these understandings with the conviction, then we would put restraint on our negative attitude, negative restraint on our destructive emotions, and then promote the positive emotions. When one is compassionate, concern for others and sharing others' sufferings, having empathy, then our own problem becomes smaller. So these are the practices that have been going on for thousands of years and are verified by practice and by the living masters. and now these are being done in a, in these are being brought in the research laboratories, and they see that there is a strong impact of these practices in one's life. And even health, one can improve one's health very quickly after changing the attitude. Stress, distress, right? And then BP and things like that. The whole physiological system changes. Your neurological system changes. Earlier, with these kind of interactions and scientific interactions, the scientists have become interested in the in knowing and studying the system of mind, as explained in Buddhism. And when they did in the beginning, prior to that, some of the big changes, I shall tell you that the neurons, right? The neurons of our brain, they are regarded to be static by nature. We are born with that, and of course it changes, not in terms of it is impermanent, but it does not change the nature, right? This was the neurons do not change, and they are static, and later through meditation, when they checked, when they did research, then they came to know that the neurons are plastic in nature. They can change, they can be reshaped, right? This is a big kind of groundbreaking change in science. And then after that, later they found that the circuits of the neurons can be changed through deliberate or through behavior, through environment, through meditation. Because the neurons have circuits, right? And these circuits are developed according to your environmental kind of impact. So you can change, because people develop their behavior and mindset in many ways through environmental kind of impact, right? The terrorists and many of those people, why they have such a very notorious and kind of thinking and actions, because they got developed in course of time in society, got information, nurtured with a certain group of people, and then developed the idea and then became like that, right? So scientists have done research on the criminals of serial killers. They have done research on many of them, and then they found that the serial killers have had a very bad childhood, without receiving love from parents. Either the parents left, or a broken family, or they did not have received care and love from their parents, and most of them are like that. So the environment plays a big role in our life. And then the kind of latest finding is the latest finding is the rejuvenation of, not the latest, earlier it was found that the neurons, normally when we grow up, then our brains also grow up, but at the age of 22 and 23, then it stops growing further, and then from that age, the neurons die. Every day, thousands of neurons die, right? And through this study, when they do, the guinea pig does meditation, then they find that the neurons are rejuvenated, right? So now, even a person of 70 years can rejuvenate their brain. You do not need to worry. But you need to do practice, right? So again, a new about 2 years from now, the finding is epigenetics. You must be knowing about epigenetics, the genes, expression of the genes, right? The genes expression can also be changed by, environment and by practice. Yeah. No one thought earlier in neuroscience, in biology, that genes expression can be changed. Now the genes expressions are found to be changing through practice, through environment. So these are some of the latest findings, and which have changed the direction of the neuroscience, psychology, cognitive science, clinical science, right? And these have changed the scenario of, and they've opened so many new avenues in modern, scientific research. And that is why I was saying that, earlier, till recent time, modern science has not, started exploring inside the inner world, but now they have started. They are very serious, and so many top scientists are interested in that, doing serious research. Very good papers are coming out. And these have not been there just as a result of the scientific findings, but these have already started giving impact in our society by, changing the curriculum, by introducing the mind training in, schools, by introducing mind training in public domain. So when they found that these are based on the, scientific researches, the UNO has appreciated His Holiness the Dalai Lama's, secular ethics approach, and they have made a statement. And then in the United States, as you know, that they are very, very sensitive for religious element. To bring any kind of religious thing in public life, they reject. For example, in a university, if there is a religious kind of entity that has been introduced in the university, next time there will be lots of, interrogations and investigations and things like that. But with this practice of, the emotional training, mind training, and to become a more peaceful person, 27 states of America has already accepted these to be introduced in education and to be accepted to be introduced in public domain for training the mind. And then in Vancouver itself, 25,000 schools, there is a school organization. They have introduced social emotional learning, which is a result of this mind training, the program. The mind training tradition, we have a very strong mind training tradition, and from here it is brought out that the children and the adults can be trained to become to lessen their anger, to lessen their envy, to lessen their ego, and then to promote their compassion, to promote their loving kindness. And these are now being introduced in schools, and school children are very much benefited, highly benefited. And in the beginning, parents had some reservation that these may be some religious elements from Buddhism or something like that. So, but after some time, when they saw the transformation of their children, then they started appreciating. Even there were reports from parents saying that they even tell the parents that what to do and what not to do, right? So they find, and the bullying has stopped, and so many problems in the school. The school principals have reported that after introduction of social emotional learning, then so many school problems are automatically solved. Now many of the health organizations are interested in this because they are spending billions of dollars every month. But with this kind of training, you don't have to do any expensive medication or anything like that. You have to, like in this hall, we can meditate, half an hour daily in the beginning. After that, few couple of hours, and then after 1 month or 2 months, then they become, health-wise, mental-wise, much better. So the health organizations, not from the spiritual point of view, but from the medication expenses point of view, they are very much behind this. That it helps a lot for public health, right? Let me tell you one story that it was a conference on mindfulness in Hamburg, Germany. One educationist professor reported during her presentation that in her school she was teaching the 6th, 7th grade students, and they introduced meditation in the class. And after introduction of these students like that, and there was no complaint at all from the school, from the children, but they all liked it. And one day there was a kind of program, and due to which the very first class of the day got missed because of the problem and the program. And later on, when the class met again for the next session, then she found one of the students missing the class, and she went out and then in search of that boy. And she found the boy meditating in a corner of the library. And then she did not disturb her and waited there for 5-10 minutes. And then when he finished, he got up and then she asked what you were doing. So he said, I have been doing the meditation that we are supposed to do in our first class. So since I missed that, I'm doing the meditation, missing the first beginning portion of the class. And then he said that since the meditation was introduced in the class, he had a big change in his life, because he had a very problematic, environment at home. The parents do not get well and get, each other very well, and there was a very unhealthy environment at home. And as a result of that, he could not, learn properly in school, pay attention to his, class teachings and do his homework. He didn't used to, get time to do his atmosphere to do his homework and things like that. But after introduction of the meditation, everything changed. And even if there is a problem at home, it does not, make impact on his life, and he can pay full attention to the class teachings, and he is much better. So he thought that if he is going to miss this, then he will miss a big kind of practice. So he continued in order to continue that. So that was kind of reaction from the students. That so meditation is actually, people think that just close your eyes and then sit there, that is meditation. Not at all, Meditation is to work on your mind. You are entering into your mind and then working very seriously, actively, where to fix and what to be rejected, what to be taken, and what are to be fixed. Actually, you are fixing those things, right, in your mind. It is a very sophisticated technique of working on your mind, right? The mind, the nature of the mind itself is a very complex. So, by meditating and developing compassion, what are the benefits of meditating compassion? The meditating compassion, by meditating compassion, I always say that you are the first beneficiary. You benefit, first instant. When you cultivate compassion, then it makes you happy. You open your heart for others, and you have more friends, and then you know, you don't have, you're lessening. The more you are practicing compassion, the more you are, lessening your enemy, right? If you don't have enemy, isn't that the happiest state? If no one, if the person doesn't have, enemy, or very little enemy, if there are he or she has so many enemies, then always in a very tense situation, right? But if one reduces the enemy and then makes everybody, friend, then not to go to each person and then make friend, but to cultivate the, mentality, the cultivate change, bring transformation within oneself with respect to the perspective and your way of looking others and how you are genuinely concerned for others, right? So that opens a new avenue. And then there are categories. Earlier, being a very selfish person, the category of, we includes perhaps for some people just one, maybe very few, family members, and then some of the beloved ones. But if you develop compassion, your, the member of the family becomes larger and larger and larger, and then you have a big family, and then the more you break down the barriers of me and we and they, right, and make it a we big enough that you don't have no more, they, then it is our problem. Then the problem becomes our, and then to work for us. And that is a very powerful and, very strong motivation that can motivate you in a very positive way to benefit others, right? So not to have enemy, isn't that the best way? You don't have to go and kill the enemy, but you can kill your animosity within yourself. That is, much better than killing the enemy, right? By killing enemy, you may end up your life in jail. But by killing the animosity you have, you are benefited. The other person is also not going to die. So it's win-win situation, right? So that is doable without, making it expensive. That is doable, and also not only doable, but highly, recommended to do, right? So if this can be done, then, and we have a strong tradition, we have a very, lively tradition, and now these are corroborated by modern research findings that these are certainly very beneficial in bringing transformation in one's life. So this is something that we need to do on daily basis, right? If you do it, not just, have such a kind of, mindset for 5 minutes. Of course, even for 5 minutes, if you do it, it's very good. It will have some impact, but to limit it for 5 minutes and then forget for the rest of the time, it is not going to be very helpful. And as some people have, questioned being, compassionate. This is something, very personal, but it cannot be done at a social level. But it is not only, it is a very personal, not only a private, matter. This can be, shared in every sphere of life. At your work, at school, at family, wherever you go, right? Even when you meet people on the street, but here in the city, you happen to meet so many people, so you cannot greet everybody, right? Then the people might find you as a crazy person. But in village, it is so good to see when you meet, then to greet others. Once you greet, once you show your smile, then that opens the heart of the other person. And that, that develops a connection between you and the person. And smiling is something that His Holiness always used to say that animals don't have, but only humans have. We have this great expression of sharing with others. So if you smile to others, then immediately the other person smiles at you. So that is a kind of happy moment, actually, right? So when we see that two persons is sharing a very genuine smile, then it is so nice to see that. Not a diplomatic smile, right? Or commercial smile, but when they share, when we see sharing a very sincere, smiling, it's so nice to see that how openly they are interacting, right? Sharing their feelings and openly, right? So we can do this in our daily life, and if you make it a daily practice, then you will become, person of so many friends, well-wishers, right? And reduce enemies, and one day you can reach to the state of having no enemy. That is the best you can do. No other thing can be done, right? No other thing can make you feel like that, right? So I want to, it is already. So now I think if we have this kind of competence being introduced in the education system, I started with the education, right? Now we should bring change in our education system, that compassion and inner values must be the important component of our education, right? Because as I said, the modern scientific the research have covered only half of their life, and the half of their life which are so relevant to us. Every moment when you see and think, you have an emotion. When you talk to somebody, you have emotion. There's no time when you don't have a reflection, right? And those reflections are addressed by this emotional training, the research, and the study system of the inner world. And now these are, as I said, the scientists have started exploring into this, and we already have a very, very profound and rich tradition. And these may not be introduced as a religious entity, but these are not associated or can be termed as a religious entity, but this can be termed as a reality of life. The what is the reality of the emotions? They can be changed, they can be developed, they can be reduced, they can be eliminated. Whereas earlier this was the kind of thinking that you are born as an angry person, short-tempered person, and you will die like that. You are born with the certain brain circuits, and you will die like that. Now this is not the situation. We have been saying for centuries and 1,000 years that you can change and you can be liberated, right? But now it is being proven through scientific research that yes, even the neurons can be changed, neural circuits can be changed, the expression of genes can be changed, the person can be transformed in a very fundamental way. And we have been saying that not only the negative emotions can be reduced, but they can be eliminated, right? Based on your understanding and realization of the reality. Right. So these are the realities, the law of nature. We are studying reality. We are practicing the the real, natural way of life, and bringing transformation. It is not based on a faith or something like that, right? So now we have ample reason to be compassionate, right? Not necessarily for others. Of course, it will have a very strong impact on others, but for your own purpose, right? When you are angry, then the first person that is going to, be affected by their anger is not the other person, but yourself. Similarly, in compassion, you are going to be the first beneficiary. It's going to benefit you in the first instance, right? So these should be introduced in the school curriculums so that students can be, trained. Students are so, tender and receptive, and they really, now we are designing some courses for schools. We have already designed in India and in America. We are already in the process of developing courses for students to be introduced in schools. And the American course curriculum, they have started from kindergarten onward to 12th level. In India, we have started designing from 6, 7 level, the ethics of restraining, and the 8, 9 ethics of virtue, and then after that ethics of compassion, and then after that ethics of discernment, discerning what things really are. And so these are being introduced in school. First the teachers are trained, and then we have developed a workbook for teachers, and we have developed a workbook for students. And the students are very responsive, really, and very, innocent in receiving them, and then reacting very innocently, and then putting into their, life. So it's a very good sign. And now we adults also must do that. Understanding, we have more reasoning kind of, capacity. By understanding the reasons and by understanding the nature and the benefits, then we should practice this. Because we all are looking for happiness. Everything, whatever we are doing, even taking a sip of cup, tea, is also for happiness, right? So if we really are looking for happiness, then you can have a deeper happiness, more long-lasting happiness, through transforming yourself, which is always doable and easily doable, right? So make compassion as a basis of your daily, life, and compassion and selfishness are contradictory, opponent. Selfishness and compassion is antidote to selfishness, and also compassion is antidote to anger, greed, and jealous, and hatred, and all this. If you have a better understanding and feeling and cultivation of compassion, then the rest of the things are taken care by itself. So make compassion a daily kind of, just as you take water and air, every moment. Similarly, take compassion as a kind of way of life in daily life, right? So thank you very much. I will take some questions. You can comment, you can bring up some new issues, or you can discuss, you can ask questions. It's open for anything.
Sheila, what is your recommendations of the dosage progressively to apply in terms of incorporating compassion in our daily life? Like the dosage, your recommendations of dosage of compassions for gradually introduce compassion into our life.
5,000 milligram. 5,000 milligram capsule, right? So that depends upon person to to person how much you can, receive, right? How much you can, but do it not just by, reading books. Of course, now there are very, good books and informations and which tells you the details of practices and cultivations. But not just rely on some not inauthentic kind of books, right? Just try to read some authentic books, and also and then ask questions with experienced people, and that would be more helpful, right? And in terms of dosage, sometimes you can pick up a huge dosage at a time. Sometimes it will take time, and then don't get discouraged that my degree of compassion has not improved in the last 2-3 months or 6 months. Don't get discouraged. It is difficult because we are so much used to our way of life that we have been living, right? But to look at it from the perspective of this way of living is not healthy, but we must live a compassionate life. That itself is a big step, and many people cannot take it. That why should I be compassionate? When I go to the West, many people ask questions, why should I be compassionate? I used to say that because it benefits you, not others, in the first instance, and then later, of course, to other people and to society. So people have this kind of compassion, very selfish attitude. With the very selfish attitude, one might feel that compassion is not necessary. I need to take care of myself. If you really wisely want to take care of yourself, compassion is the only way.
Days, but I would like to. I knew you talked. So I would like to ask: is there a difference between mindfulness?
Some of your voice is audible, some are not. Can you please repeat, or you can hear that?
I would like to ask what are the differences between awareness and mindfulness?
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So we have been, discussing about on mindfulness itself, and in the mindfulness meditation, those who have not been there in the last 2 days, mindfulness, meditation is to be mindful about your body, mind, how mind works, and to be attentive so that you can know and regulate it, right? And then see the reality as it is, because we have so many wrong ways of looking at the world. So while we are meditating on mindfulness, the mindfulness and awareness, or the alertness, when your mind is on an object, say for example on your body, right? Body as an impermanent entity, then the impermanent nature of a body, then while you're being mindful, at that time, at some point of time, it may get distracted, or you may lose your attention and have a sinking kind of attitude. Your mind may sink down and have a blurred idea about what you are meditating, and then eventually go to sleep, right? But when the awareness or the alertness mental element watches what your mindfulness is actually doing, and when the moment it distracts, then it brings the mind back to the object. That is the duty of the intelligent agency, the alertness or awareness, to be aware of the mind being distracted, right?
Okay, good afternoon, Sheila, and hello everyone. I'm actually here to say something on behalf of a Brother Wilson. Okay, unfortunately he has taken ill and not quite well due to a back injury. So I'm here just to say this on his behalf. Well, basically what motivated the organization of this series of teaching tours by Sheila, okay, was actually to spread the words of compassion, and that was actually something that is a pet project of Brother Wilson and his team members. And I happen to be one of the people who work together with him, together with I think some other members. I don't know whether they are here today. Members of the Compassion Multiplies. Any one of them here? Right, yeah, the key driver is actually overseas now. So today actually Brother Wilson really wanted to be here, okay, to share with you about it, but due to his health, so he wasn't able to. And I'm here to share with you what was done. What Geshe talked about compassion, and that the fact that the brother actually asked, okay, so how much is that dose that we need for compassion on a daily basis, is actually very pertinent to the project that we actually did, and which we actually materialized. And that particular project is called the Compassion Multiplies. So what happened was that a team of us, together with a few quite tech-savvy younger folks, okay, we came up with an app, all right, and you can find that in Android, you can find it in iPhone. It's called the Compassion Multiplies. And what we do is that we encourage, okay, people to get the app, and they take photograph of an act of kindness that they themselves have done. It can be anything. If you pick certain things, like let's say you help an elderly cross the road, all right, and for us, if we let our seats to somebody who needs sit in the train station or in any public transport, we could actually commemorate that moment, okay, by taking a little photo of something that is about the event, and we can upload it in the app. The app in itself has got this facility for that will be captured, and of course that will be linked up to your own Facebook account setting. But the magic that goes into this particular app is this: that for every 10 acts of kindness that you do, okay, and 10 seeds, you can convert that into a fruit, equivalent to a $5 donation to 2 of identified charity organizations that we hope to contribute. The amount that that is backing all this thing up is actually kindly donated by someone. Okay, so the funds are sitting over there. Okay, so currently we have about more people to do that work together, so that eventually these organizations will get to see the harvest of many acts of kindness of people they don't. To be more conscious of what they do to help other people, that in turn translate into very concrete ways, it's okay to these needy organizations. 2 charitable organizations that that was identified that we help: social services, all right, as well as CPAS. CPAS is Cerebral Palsy Association of Singapore, all right, and these 2 organizations are IPC status, and you can actually visit them. So, so far we have been trying to get people. If more of you can come on board in this particular team, okay, to do that, okay, that will. So that actually something which Brother Wilson wanted to say, and I hope that I have expressed it the way he wants. And today when he WhatsApped me in the morning and asked me, oh, can you please help me out? I said, okay, no problem. And I said, okay, all right, long and short, what do you want me, what is your wish for this app? Because he was the key driver of this thing. And he said, okay, I wish that we could achieve 1,000 participate in this app, so that if everybody consciously do and upload something once a day, and then or once a week, okay, of any age, okay, young, old, kids, you know, elderly, retirees, whatever, whoever, okay, then we could actually plant more seeds, and more seeds to be converted into more fruits, and more fruits would therefore mean more help to these two organizations. So I hope that I have message across, and thank you very much for listening. Yeah.
Continue
Any
the
question?
Q&A first.
Any question?
Sorry, Geshe-la. Pertaining to the earlier questions regarding mindfulness and alertness, mindfulness and alertness. So for mindfulness is the trainings that putting attentions into a chosen object. So be it body, feeling, or dharma, that sort of things. So while we are putting the attentions on the chosen object, we would need a intelligent agency to watch out constantly whether are we putting attentions. So when the attentions has switched, the awareness will be the one that help to identify loss of attention, loss of mindfulness, and just simply come back to the mindfulness and awareness, regardless of what distractions that have come. Just cast them aside, come back to the chosen object. That is the gist of it.
Whatever the object is.
Yeah.
Even if it is, breathing, right? So it brings back. But as I said in the last 2 days, that non-application of there is error of non-application of the awareness or alertness when it is required, and then when you reach to a certain extent, certain stage, that when you do not, your mind is stable, when your mindfulness is stable, and even then when you apply the awareness again and again, then that again is destructive. Itself is destructive for the mindfulness. So is over application of mindfulness, the awareness or alertness. So but that will reach later, after quite some time. So many, in the beginning, many meditators, when they do meditation, and then after a while, after 5 minutes, then they come to know that, oh, I was meditating, I got lost. So that was because they did not apply the awareness. Right? Application of awareness is that while you're meditating on compassion, then immediately you recollected your friends saying something or doing something, and then you got lost, and then got lost in the whole story of other things, and then after a while you may remember that, oh, I was meditating on compassion, now I'm supposed to come back. Then you are applying the awareness, right? That is a little bit too late. You should have been able to apply the awareness or alertness right after your mind got distracted from the object that is meditating on compassion, right?
Sorry, Geshe-la. One more question is about compassion. In the morning sessions, there is one sister who was asking about compassion toward oneself. And in this afternoon's Geshe-la, the way that you introduce, you will be the compassion outwardly towards others. So is that compassion toward others?
Yeah.
So it's the outward kind of compassion. And this morning there is another sister was asking about compassion toward oneself. Is that something that is called inward compassions? These two supposed to be practiced together, or to differentiate or to practice separately?
These, of course, traditionally we do not have this term self-compassion. The compassion itself, the very attitude and its object and approach is oriented for others. But of course, when one is doing a very genuine and authentically cultivating compassion, then that compassion also includes taking care of yourself as well. As I was saying, said in the morning, that through a proper cultivation of compassion, then we do not hear people getting depressed, right? But rather that brings more energy and brings more compassion in the person to to, dedicate for others and open for others and to be more concerned. Yeah, please, there is a question. Yeah.
The person that is dear to us is in despair and drinking a lot of alcohol. How do we practice compassion and help the other person?
Of course, that is even more serious object of compassion, right? How the person is indulged into, something wrong kind of habit, and so that becomes more kind of, stronger object that deserves, more compassion. So what you can do is to advise, or if possible you have a contact with the person or relation, or even though you don't have a relation, then try to take the person to a camp, to rehabilitation or something like that. We have done that, and that it is very difficult to get out of such a habit. But for some time, so for some people, it is not that difficult. It is simply a matter of determination, right? If you can determine, that very moment you can leave, right? And also, not only the alcoholic people, but also the person who is going to harm you or who is harming you. Towards such people, we often have such people in our life, right? Why should I be compassionate to the person who is harming me? What is the rationale behind that? That is the regular and general kind of, reaction. But in fact, the other person who is harming to you, if you have harmed, then the person may react. That is natural again. But even if you have done nothing, the person is going to harm you, then the person could have some misunderstanding, misinformation or something like that. Otherwise, you can there is also a way of looking at that person being he himself. Now, whenever we react towards any kind of harm or wrongdoing of a person, very important thing that must keep in mind is just to separate the person and the action. That's very, very important. Often, or most, normally or regularly, people do not differentiate between the action and the person. They identify the action with the person, and then when any wrong thing is done by the person is wrong, right? We should not identify the person with his or her action, but rather separate it. Oh, the action is not acceptable. The action is not acceptable. The person might have done this under certain circumstances, under certain circumstance of ignorance and not understanding, compulsion, and so many things, right? And then after all, even if that person has a very strong anger or disliking towards you, he is under the compulsion of anger, which again is not his, nature, right? So this can be, a factor that to look into the reality of the other person, right? To look into the reality of the person. The person is doing this under the compulsion of hatred and anger. So we can also do that kind of thing. Once we realize, then we feel sorry about that, right? So the person, why shouldn't the person be, treated as a deserving object of, forgiveness, or looking compassionately at that person, right? So in reality, we are not, fabricating the things, but we are, looking into the reality of life. When we talk about, whether he is doing this under the compulsion of anger or any negative kind of destructive emotions, or the person could have had some, advice or compulsion under certain, pressure of another person. Could be so many. There are so many ways, of the possibility, right? So these are the realities. These are the realities of life, and we, according to the realities of the life, we should approach and reflect and react, right? That is very scientific, very scientific. We are not hypothesizing something, unrealistically. It is the reality. So if we understand the realities, there are many levels of realities, in life. The ultimate reality is the emptiness, but then there are so many realities. As in the case of this, there's somebody harming on to you, as can be under certain circumstance. You need to understand the reality. Then once you understand the reality, then the things come out. And then you should also have a very insightful view about the situation. Try to explore and understand the reality, right? Yeah, please. Not able to? Yeah, of course. But then you can see this, so you can put him in a rehabilitation, or you can suggest agency or organization who is devoted to this, in taking him for rehabilitation. Of course, temporarily he is blind, but he can be educated. Yeah, of course.
May I know how and why a person get Alzheimer's disease? Is it due to aging or due to karma?
Alzheimer's is
Dementia.
The forgetfulness, right? Yeah. Oh, there could be so many reasons. Of course, basically karma, right? Basically karma, and conditionally it can be due to genetics. It can be due to certain intake of food habit, and it can be due to so many reasons. There are so many reasons out there in the in the world, but basically it's a as from Buddhist perspective is a karma, right? Of course, and now researches are taking place, and then as I said that through meditation there can be some ways to come out of that, but not in that very situation, but in a prior state. We are working on those things.
Sorry, it's my questions again. So regarding taking the dosage of compassions, from what you have described, it is a lot more to do with the mental activity. Compassion, taking the dosage, is more like a mental activity.
Absolutely.
But what about the actual actions to help others to remove their miseries? Because obviously there's a lot of things that we think that we should do, but we are not capable of doing. So under those circumstances, a sense of helplessness will come, and that will in turn sometimes give rise to depressions. So that kind of a little bit contradicts with what you said, that when you practice compassion, you won't have depressions.
And also, compassion and wisdom should go together, right? I feel that there are the war in Syria and those places. I cannot do that, so I'm very depressed for not being me as a part of the whole process of ending that war. I cannot do that, right? So I can wish, I can pray, and if possible make contributions to writings or communications. That is in what I can do, right? And if possible, if I meet somebody, then also can give advice or interact with somebody who are significant in that is possible. But we should have a sensitive about the situation and have a compassionate attitude towards that, not to be indifferent of the situation, right? And we should be compassionate, and then should be able to do as much as possible according to your condition and according to whatever you can do, right? So the compassion that we generate is very wide. It is, aimed towards all sentient beings, right? And then whatever is on the way that we can do and is doable according to your wisdom, we can do that, but should not get depressed by not being able to do many of the major things, right? Yeah. But this also again implies that you can generate compassion, but you may not do anything. That is not the implication, right? So if there is a compassion, then accordingly the action spontaneously comes, whichever is required required according to the situation. That the compassion itself is associated with the certain kind of the wisdom. Yeah.
How do you have compassion to those people that you don't like or people that hurt you before?
Yeah, that is what I was suggesting, that even the compassion should not be limited. We do have a compassion to our beloved ones and dear ones. That is not necessarily compassion. It is associated with attachment, right? And mother's, love for child, many ways are very pure, compassion and loving kindness, but often associated with attachment, right? But then our cultivation of a compassion in a genuine way towards, not only towards our beloved ones, but also extended to the indifferent persons, people, and then finally extend to your, to the category of people who are regarded to be in the category of, the enemy or foes or the disliked people, right? And then it has to be shifted to them. If you are able to do that, then you can see that your practice of compassion is going well, Yeah, okay. So we can stop here.